Hello, welcome to the second ELTT webinar. ELTT is the Enabling Leadership for Transformational Learning and for Sustainable Development program at University of Zurich, run by the sustainability team at University of Zurich. And we'd like to welcome you everybody here at this second webinar. Today we have our distinguished guest, Professor Geoffrey Scott from University of Western Sydney in Australia. And on the other side, Adriana Troxler from oikos International, Students for Sustainable Economics and Management. What we are going to talk today is actually that universities are in a key role to contribute to sustainable development of society. To fulfill this role, universities really need to transform themselves towards institutions that reflect sustainability within their operations, research, and educational programs, as well as throughout their kind of third mission in collaboration actually with society. So yet to progress this transformation, change agents, which are within the universities, need to be enabled to take leadership. And this is what we are going to talk today actually, how can change agents within the university be enabled to take leadership for sustainable development. Leaders for this process might be the head level of the institutions, of course, but also students, lecturers, researchers, the academic staff, administration or stakeholders even outside the university. Any actor in an institution may become change agent to contribute to sustainable development. To enable actors from different backgrounds to do so, they need to have the freedom and resources to act, as well as the key competences to initiate activities that contribute to a whole of institution transformation towards sustainable development. So here the question also for this webinar, how can we enable actors, students, academic staff, management to become active for sustainable development? Today in our ELTT webinar, we'd like to talk about institutional processes and experiences of our two distinguished panelists. And I've already shortly introduced to you, so on the one side from Australia, Professor Geoffrey Scott.
Hello.
This is Professor Geoffrey Scott from Australia, from University of Western Sydney, and he has done a global study on turnaround leadership for sustainability in higher education, where we might hear a little bit more about it today. And on the other side of our globe, here we see Adriana Troxler. Can you see her? Or yes, from oikos International, at the head base of oikos International, an international student organization with more than 40 chapters around the world, engaged for integrating sustainability into higher education and especially sustainable economics and management programs at universities. So with this, I'd like to start actually our discussion, and we'll start with a first question to Adriana. And this question is actually, as an international student organization, so with more than 40 chapters globally, we promote sustainability integration into curricula and management of universities since more than 20 years. So the question to you would actually be, could you shortly describe what drives students there to take leadership to change their institutions? Please, Adriana.
Thank you very much, Clemens, for the opportunity to be here. It's a big pleasure to share with you my experience on this webinar. As you have mentioned, oikos is an international student-driven organization for sustainability in economics and management. And for the past 4 years, I had the opportunity to work full-time in the headquarters of oikos, and I have seen several students that are taking the leadership, the ownership, and driving change in their university. And it's my honor today to share a little bit of their experience. At the moment, oikos, as Clemens said, is more than 40 chapters around the world, in Kenya, in Ghana, in India, in Georgia, in Azerbaijan, in several countries in Europe, especially in Europe, and in US. And those students are more than 1,000 members, and they are the heart of the organization. When I talk to them, and ask exactly this question that you asked me today, Clemens. Why do they do what they do? Why do they take the leadership and drive change in their university? The answers varies, but most of them tell that everything started with a tipping point. They generally mention one moment, one experience, or one person, one effect that made them realize that something needs to change. They get a different experience, perspective, they expand their worldview, and they became aware of a fact that they want to change into their university, into their education, into their learning process. Everything starts with awareness. The individual becomes aware there is something that he is not satisfied with. It can be in a lecture about a specific subject, and it could be an experience that they had. They went abroad, they start being involved with their community, and they got exposed to a different reality that was eye-open for them. They met someone, they inspired them, had interesting conversations. They have read a book, they watched the movie, they attend the conference. There are so many ways of being exposed and being aware that there is something that I need to do. Whatever is the reason, whatever they realize that they need to change their education, their way of learning, and their university. And their experience creates an inner motivation, a passion, a purpose, a willingness to make change in their university. Some of them will combine this passion with courage. And then when they combine passion with courage, then it becomes this is a strong combination, because this inner motivation, they're combined with courage, brings them to action. They take ownership of their own learning and the learning of the others. That's actually how oikos was created in 1987 at the University of St. Gallen. Few individuals realized that economy was taught only with the purpose of managing money, not really managing the whole house. They did not take in consideration the environment or social aspects. But when oikos was found in the end of 80s, they actually had a big institutional impact at the University of St. Gallen and even in Switzerland. Because at that point, there were not that many information about sustainability. I have heard many founders saying, oh, I remember that I would go to the library and wouldn't have that many books about sustainability. I read all of them. I read all the books at the University of St. Gallen, and I invited all the experts to come to the University of St. Gallen to tell me how can I learn that. And that was impressive for them. And because of that, because of this drive, this willing to make change, they made an institutional change. They were one of the driving force of creating the first institute at the University of St. Gallen that combines economy and environment, the Institute of Economy and Environment. And they were also a driving force to create the Swiss Association for Ecological Management. And in that sense, you see today that the students are exposed to sustainability today. There are many books around. Several universities actually teach sustainability in their university, but not necessarily they are satisfied with what they are learning. For example, there was a survey called Business as Unusual with Net Impact in last year in the September 2014. They said that the level of satisfaction of the students dropped to 27 to 16% because they are not satisfied with their curriculum. And the level of not satisfaction at all increased to 2 to 5% exactly in the same year, 2010 to 2014. And you ask why? The universities are taking care more about that, and why they are not now more satisfied than before. And but everything starts with an individual, or and taking their leadership and the ownership of their experience. Because some universities, they don't really even they don't integrate at all sustainability into their core business. That's an example of Georgia. We have a member called Levan Pangani. He is a member of oikos for more than 5 years. And he was in Georgia studying, and he realized, wait a minute, my studies doesn't really give me the education to cope with the issues of 21st century. And he took action. He looked ways for him to learn and understand more about the topic, because this is a topic that was not addressed at all at his university. And he joined a student club that is oikos. Being part of a student organization or a movement makes students stronger to make change towards sustainability, because they are not alone. For example, if you look at the International Student Initiative for Pluralism and Economics campaign last year, they managed to bring together 60 student organizations worldwide in more than 40 countries around the world together, and they wrote an open letter, manifesto calling for change of economics education. They wrote in their open letter, "We are dissatisfied with a dramatic narrowing of the curriculum that has taken place over the last couple decades. This lack of diversity does not only restrain education and research, it limits our ability to contend with multidimensional challenges of the 21st century, from financial stability to food security and climate change. The real world should be brought back into the classroom, as well as the debate and pluralism of theories and methods." So look at this case. They became strong. They got so many media attentions. You're going to see their manifesto in The Guardian, the Financial Times, in the Business Insiders. They managed, because they together, they managed to bring their vision to one open letter and clear and saying what they want. It always goes back to one person or one group of individuals that saw something that they were not satisfied in their organization, their learning, and they had the courage to take action. When they collaborate with faculty, they become even stronger. For example, in oikos, there are many examples that the students start collaborating with the faculty, and they actually develop a curriculum, a new program, which is great. And it's also the same when they start collaborating with the university administrators. They become even stronger. We have also several examples when the students start collaborating with the university administrator and sharing to them, these are the facts of how to improve the university, how to bring sustainability here in the university. I have created a report that shows the carbon footprint, and I've talked to experts, and they told me, if you reduce this, if you bring this, it will change. It will actually bring savings to the university, and then they become stronger. Mm-hmm. So, when the students collaborate with the faculty and the university administrator, they become stronger. But the opposite also is very important. The faculty and the university administrator needs also to collaborate with the students, because then we start seeing changes that are sustainable in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Adriana. It was very interesting. So it gives us a really great impression about the power students can have actually between institutions and even in society by institutional and social change. Mm-hmm. So that was very impressive. Thanks a lot, Adriana.
Thank you.
First impressions on the work that oikos does actually within the chapters and globally, in collaboration then also with other organizations.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So my question now goes forward to Geoff from Australia. And my question to you would now be, actually in 2012, you published a global study titled Turnaround Leadership for Sustainability in Higher Education. Could you maybe shortly describe what your assumption was before the study and what the main surprise or outcomes have been? So what are we really learning about how to take leadership for sustainability in higher education? Please, Geoff.
Yeah, thank you. We've been doing studies of successful early career graduates as well as leaders in universities for the last 20 years. So I thought I'd just share with everybody essentially the key lessons that we've learnt. And they can be summarised in two themes. And in a sense, when I started this Turnaround Leadership for Sustainability study, we had in mind these two themes that had emerged out of our previous 20 years' work, and also my work as a provost at a university trying to engage mad people when they didn't want to listen. The first theme is good ideas with no ideas on how to implement them are wasted ideas. There's lots of people with great ideas, but nothing ever happens on Monday. They just end up talking to the converted, but the large numbers of people who aren't engaged never get engaged, and so the students don't benefit. So that's the first little theme lesson. The second is change doesn't happen, it must be led, but deftly. And tied to that theme is the fact that everyone is a leader of change, but in their own area of expertise. And that's very important coda to put onto it. You have to actually be well positioned in terms of where you are to be the leader in your own area of expertise. So two themes, good ideas with no ideas on how to implement them are wasted ideas. Universities endlessly come up with good ideas, but nothing changes on Monday. And the second one is change doesn't happen, it must be led. And everyone is a leader of change in their own area of expertise. So I'll quickly run through the 7 or 8 key findings now, Clemens, if that's okay. And I can send these off for folks to look at, and people can certainly just look up the study on the internet. If you put into your search engine, Turnaround Leadership for Sustainability in Higher Education, there's a free download of that document and of role-specific guides if you're interested. So, George Bernard Shaw once said, reformers have the misplaced notion that change is achieved by brute logic. So one of the problems of the good ideas with nothing happening on Monday is leaders don't understand the idea that if you lecture people about the logic of change, that does not necessarily engage them, it engages you. So I've removed completely from my lexicon, and our study, all of our studies show this, you get rid of the word dissemination from your lexicon and you substitute the word engagement. And what engagement means is good leaders, and this is, you can forget everything else I say, guys, this is the key lesson. I can summarise my entire career and all of our research in 4 words, right? Good leaders always listen first with a case for change that it meets the needs of the person they're trying to engage, not themselves. So knowing their motivators, they listen with a case for change, that's their motivators, with some options that others have found have worked, so that there's a sort of a test of feasibility. Listen with a menu and a case. That's first, listen, always first. Second, link together what most people who are going to do the change actually say they think is relevant and feasible. So when you're listening, you're seeing if they support the case for change, otherwise they won't engage. If they do, then you're looking at what would they be prepared to do on Monday. And then when you link together, you're trying to link together what most people are prepared to do. That's listen, link. The third lesson is leverage. What you actually then do is you try to find out people when you're listening who are further down the track who can try out the solution on behalf of everyone because they're further advanced. And so you listen, link and leverage. And what lead is using those people who've trialled out the solution in the local context and tweaked it and learnt by doing it. You use them as coaches for those who are further back up the path, and that is what lead is. So you go always, never in any other order have I done in my career, you go listen, link, leverage, and then lead. And that's how I turned around a university that was number 38 in Australia to number 2. And it wasn't just me, it was listening to everyone else. It was me just doing that method. So that's the key way to tackle those 2 challenges of good ideas with no ideas on how to implement them are wasted ideas, and change doesn't happen, it must be led but deftly. So I'll just quickly summarise now just a few more specific points just so that you can see how we've done it and what came out of that study. So the first thing is, as a good leader, you've got to manage yourself when things go wrong. Everyone's a great leader when it's all running smoothly. Your capability is always tested when that mad person has a go at you, when you're in a meeting and suddenly someone abuses you, when you get an email that comes in that you think, good, you look at it 3 times, you think, good God, what's going on here? That's when your capability is challenged. And your capability, therefore, at that moment is not met by knowing a lot of knowledge and skills. It's how you manage yourself personally. So it's about mindfulness. It's whether or not you can actually calm yourself in a way that enables your brain to diagnose what's going on in this situation. Then it's the ability to listen to others, as I've just said. And then it's a cognitive skill, which is the ability to diagnose, not to problem solve, is to work out what's going on in this situation in the human dimension and the technical, and is it important? Because people who can't manage themselves mindfully, everything's a crisis. Everything's a crisis. So they've got to solve everything. The mindful people can tolerate ambiguity, they can remain calm, and they can actually let some situations pass. So listen, link, lead, and leverage. Underpinning that, you can see what I'm getting at here. There are interfacing ways to disport yourself. Now, you don't have to do a training course. You just have to remember this and watch yourself next time something goes wrong. And if you find yourself only to come up with what you should have said as you drive home 4 hours later by yourself in the car, right, then just gently allow yourself to realise we're all like that. So that's the key finding from our research is good leaders might have lots of skill and knowledge, but it's the higher order abilities to manage themselves personally, interpersonally, and cognitively, diagnostically, that actually distinguishes them. So, and everyone can do that in your own level, in your own area, when you're ready. So that's the second point, and I'll just finish a couple of others off because I know we don't want to run over time. The next thing is to know what sustainability means. So it does not mean climate change. It does not simply mean environmental sustainability. It means social, cultural, economic, and environmental in a horrible, messy mix. Because people will not change their behaviours simply through the idea that the globe is warming. They change their behaviours through interpersonal, social, peer group pressures, and there's an issue there of social and cultural sustainability and understanding. So being clear to yourself on what you mean to yourself when you use throwing these words around like sustainability and sustainable development is critically important. And the work I'm doing now, I'm the National Senior Teaching Fellow in Australia for the Australian Government, where we're looking at the learning outcomes for Australian universities that are going to produce work-ready plus graduates, not just work-ready graduates for the last 40 years, but work-ready plus ones for the next 40. And what's the plus? Sustainability literate. Change implementation savvy, which is what I've just been talking about, how to manage nutcases. You need to practice this at university. Sustainability literate, we're clear on what we mean. Change implementation savvy, we're a bit deft at that, but we know that's always going to be hard. Inventive, not just regurgitative. So I'm about to go on a world tour looking at assessment of these things. And finally, and most critically, I believe every single student in university and every one of us needs to reflect and come to our own considered position on the 4 tacit assumptions driving the 21st century agenda. One is growth is good. The second is consumption is happiness. The third is information technology is always the answer. And the fourth is globalisation is great. So I was in Fiji last week staying at a Holiday Inn. I stayed at a Holiday Inn 2 days ago in Sydney. It looks exactly the same. The only thing that's different is the accents. They say the same thing at the desk and the sofa's always in the same spot. Now, you know, we need diversity to adapt. That's what ecology tells us. So that notion of work ready plus, the plus is about actually being able to listen, link, leverage and lead. It's about understanding what you stand for in sustainability. It's about not just blindly accepting ICT as always the answer, although it's incredibly disruptive and it's there, but understanding your position on globalisation. So the final couple of points is pick your time. I think the time now for sustainable, looking at the 4 pillars of sustainability in the curriculum and embedding it, and I'll tell you what we're doing around the world a bit later about that if you're interested, is right. We've got the climate summit, we've got Paris this week. That's about social sustainability and sustainability. That's about harmonious societies. We've got the resource economy in my country has had it. So we've got to invent a new Prime Minister. We've got rid of the old one. There's a new one who actually gets this. He's actually now funding the universities to be inventive and engaged and actually looking at alternative ways of developing our country. There's an enormous amount of interest in what we could do with 3D printing, for example, which is itself a sustainability initiative if managed well. So you've got to pick your time. So at the moment in Australia, I've been chosen to do this National Senior Teaching Fellowship because in a sense the time was ripe. And that's why I'm getting much more leverage and listening to when I talk about the plus of Work Ready Plus than I would have in 2008, 2009. So I leave that with you, I suppose. I won't say anything more about it except every single study we've done for the last 30 years and all of my practice as a higher education leader tells me to always listen, link, leverage and lead, and don't just go for Work Ready, go for Work Ready Plus. And the 4 bits of the plus are right digging straight into your agenda. So if you're trying to engage people, not disseminate, don't lecture them, you've got to try and leverage what they think they've got to do anyway because these other forces are moving them in that direction. So I finish by simply the analogy, I'm a surfboard rider. You've got to work out how to ride the waves of change. You don't pick every wave, you just wait for the right wave, then you get onto it, and then you've got the emotional intelligence to not panic and the skills to actually lock yourself into the tube and come out the other side.
Nice.
Thanks a lot, Geoff, for this insights into your year-long experience on sustainability in higher education and leadership, how to take leadership for sustainability in higher education. And we have learned a lot here, I think, about what our challenges are and where we can, or how leadership should actually look like to really implement change within universities. Now, from this perspective also, Adriana, what challenges do you think actually students face to take leadership for sustainability within the institutions? Is it similar to what Geoff also just said, that it's to get into the role also of leadership for sustainability in higher education, or is it rather the collaboration with different levels of universities? What do you think what the main challenges actually are?
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I really think there are many challenges. It's actually easy to think of the challenges than actually the drives. and what we just heard right now, it's something that it's also a big challenge for the students, because the students are learning to be leaders right now. They never took leadership before, and sometimes they don't know that they have to listen, to link, to leverage, and to lead. They simply try to sometimes just convince people that what they are saying is right, and they don't listen before, they don't engage, they don't collaborate, and then they have an issue. So this, what you have said, it's exactly a core issue that we are having right now, because some people just try to bring their message in a very imposed way, and then who becomes the first roadblock for the students is the other students, their own peers, because they don't see or they don't care at all about the importance of having sustainability integrated at their university. For many students, the degree is just a paper that they need to have to get a good job and to earn money in the future. They are not concerned about what they learn. They are only concerned sometimes to have a good grade in their exam, memorize everything that the professor said in front, and write down everything in the exams and get a good grade and say, yes, I'm a good student. They believe that the university is not really preparing them for the future, and they actually are fine with it. They say that when they go to their employer, the employer will teach them the important skills for them to actually start working, not the university. So why do I have to ask many questions or take ownership of my learning? The professor don't really care about me anyhow. So that's what we hear. And also getting people committed is a very big challenge nowadays. as you said, there are many projects to actually devote your time. So it's actually hard to prioritize which one should I go to and which one should I devote my passion. And that's another question. The students, they never reflect in what they are their passion. What is their purpose? They are not doing that. They are simply working as machine and asking and going ahead in their life and just filling up an activity. Maybe they will join a student organization to integrate sustainability into economics and management, but not because they have the passion or purpose, and just because they need an activity to put in their CV that they were active. So that's a big issue. And some of the students are just extremely skeptical that there is need to integrate sustainability in university. I have heard from an MBA student saying this to me: why do I have to waste my money? Because I spend a lot of money to come here and study in this MBA to learn sustainability topics. Why don't we have more finance classes? So there is also a skeptical part of the students. But also the students that they face also another challenge, and it's not the students, but also the bureaucratic process of curricula change. In several universities in the world, this is the task of the faculty who write a course syllabus, sit on the curriculum committees, and develop student learning outcomes. And this process takes years, even decades. I have heard from professors telling, don't waste your time, students, to change curriculum. This is such a bureaucratical process, and you're not going to manage because you're here just for 3 to 5 years, and this will take decades. However, students want to be involved in the process, and they get frustrated when they are not included in the process. And there are a few universities around the world, I don't know if you have heard, New School in New York. The students in the beginning of their degree, they sit together and they create their own curriculum together. So you also have some interesting best practices. But also you have skeptical, okay, but how do you do with the bachelor? How do the person knows what they want if they, so you get a little bit of both. And another thing of the problem of the curriculum change is that they are focused nowadays they are not really integrating sustainability into all the disciplines. They are just putting one sustainability here, a topic here and there. And if we really want to create a sustainable change in the curricula, this change will only occur when a large number of faculty have the knowledge, skills, resource, support, incentive, and disposition to change what they learn and how they learn. Because professors, they have spent so many years doing their PhD thesis and research, and then if you ask them now, change what do you want to teach, they're like, no, I cannot teach something that I don't know. It's hard for them to make change as well. So, and then you have to include them in this process. Another problem that you see is the logistics. Students, they have different minds. And sometimes you don't listen to all the minds and put it together in one manifesto like ECIP manage. It's really hard logistically to get all the students with one opinion, a strong opinion to bring to the university and say, we are the students of this university X and we request this change. It's really hard to bring this all together. And then you have a funding gap. They are not able to really raise funds for themselves to make the change. They need money to do their activities, and sometimes they spend so much time just raising funds instead of doing their activity itself. But I think one of the main issues is the lack of leadership, and what exactly what Geoff just told us. The students, they are not really acquiring how do I become a leader in their university. And when they are trying to do it by themselves, and this happens all the time, they are not really doing it with a purpose and listening to people. Sometimes they are, but they are their own enemy, because as soon as they face the first challenges, they give up. And that's something that we should not. If we really want to make a change, we really need to embrace it. And then the first challenges, you just try to find other ways to overcome it. So I will just finalize with one thing. This manifesto that I told about in my first question, they said that change will be difficult. It always is. But it's already happening. Students across the world have already started creating change step by step. Change must come from many places. So invite you, students, economists, and non-economists, to join us and create the critical mass needed for change. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Adriana, for showing up actually quite a list of challenges that students face here to implement change within their institutions. And this probably brings us also to the next question, Geoff, to you. So are these challenges linked to leverage probably also that could increase change within institutions? So Adriana, just to mention some of what you listed now is funding, bureaucracy, different kinds of incentives that are needed, literacy, sustainability literacy. Geoff, you mentioned this also before, and as well as the lack of leadership. Are these actually challenges that could be turned around into leverage points, so to enable leadership within institutions by students, but also by other staff?
What I can just talk, apart from the research that people can look up, Western Sydney University has 50,000 students, so it's quite a large university, and it's not an elite university, and in a highly competitive environment, there was a lot of work to do. And one of the things that we worked on when I got appointed back in 2004 was selecting in leaders gradually and gently, right from heads of programs, program coordinators, through to associate deans, through to deans, right through who had emotional intelligence. In other words, we changed quite dramatically the selection criteria. To get in, you had to have relevant skills and knowledge and a doctorate in a particular area, but what we were most interested in was selecting people who could actually listen, lead and leverage, who were not mad egotists who'd spent all their time doing their own research and were slightly Aspergery, but were rather people who could actually work with diversity, could actually read particular different people's motivations and work out what was best way to, in fact, link them into a broader change strategy. So that idea of actually looking at how leaders get selected is one solution we dealt with. The second thing we did is we looked at systems alignment, where we had a series of rewards. So the program level outcomes for the university, and we included sustainability in it, the 4 pillars. We then leveraged the fact that people had to when they were validating their programs or reviewing them, we had to do this anyway because we concurrently succeeded. I was on one of the national committees where the National Tertiary Education Quality and Standards Agency, in order to accredit universities and programs, required you to show how you were validating your program level outcomes, including a focus on the 4 pillars of sustainability. So what you've got is multiple systems incentives all working in the same direction. We similarly made sure that the leaders, the deans and associate deans, when they had their annual performance reviews, were held to account for key improvement areas when implementation wasn't working. We set up sustainability awards. We set up the Regional Centre of Expertise for Sustainability hosted by the university. We got the Minister for the Environment to launch it. We got high levels of media coverage. Vice Chancellors love media, they love photo opportunities. So suddenly you become associated by thinking strategically about what motivates the people whose support you need. You've got to think about how to actually leverage to them. So, you know, the Vice Chancellor wants to look good, he wants to look distinctive, he wants to look like he's up with it. So you make him feel like that. Then, as a result of that, in fact, this was not a he, it was a woman, it was Jan Reid. Having said that, we were lucky to have a Vice Chancellor who was like that. If you had a mad person, you couldn't do it. So it was purely strategic serendipity, right? My entire career has been one of strategic serendipity. But the timing was right, the person was right, and the strategic bit is, do I take this position up? I was already a dean at another university. Do I take this position up or stay where I'm happy? So that notion of strategic serendipity lies underneath all of this for all of us. It's working out the propitious time, trying to put yourself into the shoes of others, trying to work out what would motivate their engagement when you need them, looking at the diversity of the people that you are leading, and not actually just talking to your friends, but particularly listening to resistors, people who are resistant, in a courteous way, in a way that helps you identify what you might be up against, but also listening for something positive so you can then say, well done to them. So that's my general response to what we've said in terms of the challenges. Just to mention a couple of other quick things, Clemens and Adriana. I think the issue of actually using the university as a living laboratory is important. So what we introduced in our university was a sustainable university rolling fund, where students and staff had to come up with a way of saving money and making money out of waste, and with a business plan. Then we had the local bank manager and the director of finance would look at the return on investment. So we only funded those projects that actually looked like they had a return on investment. So we started with 500 grand, we've now got 750. So that's been going since 1993 in Harvard, and I just nicked it from my friend Leith Sharp there and just implemented, right? So that means that people act their way into new ways of thinking because the campus is suddenly exemplifying other ways of behaving, which has got nothing to do with what's happening in the traditional classroom. And you're using students and staff as co-creators. And incidentally, I've just been asked to be the facilitator for the Association of Commonwealth of Universities, where our key theme this year is students as co-creators of the curriculum. So the timing, it's all happening. So I wanted to mention the Sustainable University Rolling Fund. I've mentioned the Regional Centre of Expertise. The other one is the Blue Economy, which you're probably all aware of, but if not, you must read it. It's called put it into your search engine. I don't know whether I've got time to tell people now, Clemens, but you could send them. I sent you through a copy of the Palabora citrus expedition. So if we don't have time now, you can send that through to everyone. I've sent that through to you as an email the other day. Mm-hmm. So I think that the final point is what we've got to do now is to flip the curriculum. It's no good for us to start with people coming up with units of study that are all separate and unlinked and unintegrated. As humans, we come out as an integrated transdisciplinary human being in the world. The world's transdisciplinary, it's not monodisciplinary. And so the way in which we've actually been arguing the embedding of sustainability in the curriculum in the universities I'm working with around the world is this idea that it will actually give you, the university, an edge in a competitive market. So you don't just talk altruism, but you also do talk to those who are receptive to the moral purpose of doing this. And you go and we do studies of successful graduates, so we're able to show those capabilities I mentioned earlier, the listen, link, lead and leverage. They are actually identified by successful graduates. We've worked with Deloitte Touche and companies around the world to look at where there are occupations that people don't realise as a sustainability edge. So the summary of the second little component of my input is you've got to think systemically. You can't think in an isolated way, and the art is when the serendipitous moment arises, you've got to be able to step into that serendipitous moment with a thought-through way of engaging the other person and a suggested way of moving forward that they will see as helping them look good, if you like, and helping them achieve a moral purpose. So look, I could rattle on for hours, but that's probably enough, I think. And down the track, I do commend everyone to look at the Blue Economy projects because they are absolutely the way forward.
Thanks a lot, Geoff. Actually, that's brought us directly into the questions also coming in by our listeners. And you already mentioned the co-creation of students. That is very important within university processes. And there we have actually two questions that came in by our listeners, by Linda and Stefan. So Linda asks actually, which recommendations do you have for students who want to start a new initiative at the university? How should they get started? And another question by Stefan was also actually Swiss universities, so the Swiss universities program planned a 2 million Swiss francs or US dollar program to encourage students to contribute to education for sustainable development directly. So which projects would you wish to be handed in by students? So which projects could be really change-making within universities? Or how could universities actually start to engage for sustainability within their institutions? Maybe Adriana, would you like to start on this question?
Sure. The first question, how should I start? I think the first thing you have to, if you use the analogy that Geoff has actually said, you have to start listening to yourself first. What is my passion? What drives me? What do I want to make a change? And then you start linking it to what is happening in your reality right now. And then you do the leverage and you start leading it. So you, as an individual, as a student, make sure to know what do you want to make a change. Because in the moment that you know your eyes start shining and you start talking about it, you know what is going to happen. People will start listening to you as well. And they will start working with you with the change. So listening to yourself and listen to what the others have to say as well. And then so you can come up with the best strategy for your own university, for your own community. And that's for me a very important. And now it's great that the Swiss government gave us this 2 million for us to work with students' projects. And I think I think the best projects are the ones that are with engagement and collaboration, not only with students, but with faculty, with staff, with the local community, when we take this into consideration. So when you think about a project, think about a project that will have an impact, and think of this impact. And use this impact as a leverage for when you start talking about it. Because if you do a project only because you have the money, and some of the people are doing that, most likely your impact won't be that higher. And you have really to consider that whatever I want to do it because I want to make an impact in this university. I want to be responsible for making the change. And when you do, and you start engaging with faculty and with administrator and with the government to get this money, they will listen to you because you're going to be authentic. And you're going to be an authentic leader to ask the questions because you're demanding something that comes from within. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Adriana. And that was actually, pointing out again that collaboration, engagement is very important for implementing change, also by students. And there's one question now also coming from Linda here to Geoff, to you. If you could probably explain one or another example of transdisciplinary engagement, which also points out this importance of collaboration between university and society, or between different actors of engagement. Please, Geoff.
Well, I'll mention the citrus farm to you. So we're working all around the world on these blue economy projects. What the blue economy is about is not to use the word green because that bifurcates, and that immediately, in a sense, disenfranchises people who don't like greenies. So basically what Gunter Pauli, who came up with this concept, uses the idea of the blue economy because the Earth is blue from space. So that's where it came from. So in Palabora in northwest South Africa in 1994, the African National Congress gave a black township an amount of money, some rand, to set up a citrus farm. By 1999, the whole thing was a complete mess. No one had any management skills. No one had any of the horticultural skills to make it a success, and they didn't have any marketing. So the African National Congress brought in McKinsey's from New York. McKinsey's looked at it and said the only way you make money out of this is to fire all the blacks and automate. Right? That's the single That's the single interpretation version of the world. That's a monodisciplinary interpretation of the world. So what the Blue Economy projects do, and we've got more than 100 of them all around the world, they're most wonderful things. What you do is you bring in the staff and the students. So you've got the strategic serendipity and the fact that that was there. The University of Pretoria then brought up a group of staff and students who were from tourism, they were from chemistry, they were from horticulture, and they were working with the cattle, bovine cattle. Now that was intentional because they were looking at an orange farm, but they knew that right next door, you've got to be able to see the unique situation, you see. Right next door, someone at the university said, the Kruger National Park's right next door, and in that are all of these game lodges full of rich geriatrics like me with very large Nikon cameras paying $10,000 a week to come over and take photographs of the Big Five and sit around at night in front of an open fire with, you know, very comfortable drinks and fine food, right? So someone had that lateral glance. What happened then is as follows. Now have a think about, this is what should be happening in Switzerland and all around the world, right? You identify areas where you could make money out of waste and you send in a team and they've got to think laterally. There's no reading books about this really. You bring that with you. So first of all, the tourism students came in and they said, look, where do you get your orange juice? And they said, we fly it up from Joburg frozen, right? And they said, well, do you think the geriatrics with their cameras would be interested if people in the Black Township bought in season freshly squeezed orange juice each morning, and they could talk about the township and talk about their lives in a Black Township in Africa, or South Africa and so on. And they said, yeah, that would be good. They'd go for that for sure, right? So that's the original product. Then they said, right, they were looking around, they said, now, where do you get your firewood from? They said, we have to bring it in because we can't cut down anything in the Kruger. They said, well, we could bring firewood in because we have that as waste from our prunings. And we could let them know that we're bringing in the orange firewood so that when they drink their juice, they can know that, you know, that wood's not being thrown away. And they said, yeah, that's good. Then the horticultural students said, would you be interested in shiitake mushrooms? And they said, what do you mean? And they said, well, we can use the detritus from the orange grove to show the Black Township folk how to grow shiitake mushrooms in a little galvanised shed, right? And they said, oh, yeah, that'd be great, right? So then you got shiitake mushrooms. Then the chemist said, don't throw the orange peels away. We'll get a 20,000 Rand loan and we'll show the folks how to make limonene, which is a biodegradable detergent. And they paid that off in 3 months, right? The 20,000 Rand. Then the guys who were working with the cattle said, don't throw away the used orange peels. We'll take them and feed them to the cattle because they're a cleansing agent for the first gut of cattle. That's transdisciplinarity. That's universities actually getting people to think laterally. That's getting inventively. That's people thinking in a transdisciplinary way about the 4 pillars of sustainability, and they all got credit for it as a capstone course.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, if it would be that easy, right? But I think what you pointed out is very important, that this collaboration between different disciplines is very important, to get out to the people, to learn from each other, right? And to listen, link, and leverage.
Well, let me just make a point though, just so that we don't lose it. That was supported by the Vice-Chancellor of that university, because they went to the Vice-Chancellor of the university when they were setting up the capstone projects, and they said, we know that the African National Congress wants us to develop up the capacity of Black Townships, right? Can we set up capstones where, if they come up, to enable students to go in a transdisciplinary team? So you're getting assessed, right? And the staff are doing their research projects. And the Vice-Chancellor thought it was great because it helped position his ego in relation to the other universities as doing something significant. So that's what I was saying before about listen with a menu and understanding who you're dealing with. They didn't just invent that. It had to be signed off by the university first. So you have to have a case for change and a proven option. And the proven option was the other 99 blue economy projects that were already working successfully.
Yeah.
And, you know, that may not be relevant, but I thought I'd throw it in.
Well, it is. Thanks a lot, Geoff. We have one more question by Stefan that we'd like to bring in, and then we can come also to the final round. Actually, that question relates to the form and the ways of integrating sustainability within higher education institutions. So, do you think it is rather useful here really to mainstream sustainability around all curricula, or is it rather useful here to create concrete sustainability courses, so to concentrate sustainability also within courses, so to know what you learn in a certain course on sustainability in that sense? Would you like to continue directly on that, Geoff? Maybe?
Yeah. So what I'm doing in my National Senior Teaching Fellowship is we're focusing not on unit level outcomes but program level outcomes. So the first thing, it's like we were just saying, if a university is not interested in having program level outcomes that they see strategically positions them well and is morally robust to put sustainability in as part of their program level outcomes, then so be it. But there are significant numbers of universities that can see the benefit of this, particularly at the propitious time that we now have, and they are doing it. So how do you enact that? Well, what we are doing, and I'm doing this across about 20 universities at the moment, what we're starting gently with is with a capstone. So you don't start with trying to convince all of the staff to go and teach sustainability, a bit like reading and writing all the time, but you actually have a capstone, and as part of the capstone that they know they get that at the outset of their program, they've got to work towards the capstone. The students need to be listening for anything that will help them to actually do well in the capstone, which will be around a project like the Palabora one that I mentioned. You know, it'll be one that will require you to, in fact, think in a transdisciplinary way. And the other thing that then you can actually then start to do is, if you do have specialist enthusiasts courses, the art is to try and have a specialist enthusiast course in the 4 pillars, not just in environmental sustainability, because that's often where it always goes, right? But if you think about it, social, cultural and economic sustainability are dimensions which, once you alert them to staff, it's not a big conceptual leap for some folks to actually think about how to actually re-leverage what they're doing to actually sort of locate it. You know, like we have Indigenous culture courses, right? So, you know, that's about cultural sustainability. It's just that they've never been labelled as actually making that connection. So my view is, if the uni's not interested, it's fine. If it is, look at the program level outcomes so that people think about it. Start with a capstone, in, you know, just literally a unit of study called capstone, which requires them to bring everything they've learned together around a project, and then gently encourage the staff who are already teaching social, cultural, economic and environmental related issues but don't know it, to actually just label that as they go forward. And we're doing that in 20 unis. It's not a hard ask because people don't have to write a new subject.
All right. Thanks a lot, Geoff. And Adriana, would you also like to respond to your view on that?
For just quickly, I do believe that nowadays teaching sustainability as a separate way already served the purpose. It was an important way of people actually understanding the importance of sustainability, and now it's really important that we really integrate and embed sustainability into all the disciplines. That the people don't feel like, oh, this is a topic that is just that I will or not choose to take it. It's something that everyone needs to take it so they can reflect it and to be able to respond to the challenges that we have in the 21st century. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Adriana. And maybe now we can also come to the final round. Would you actually have also a question to Geoff here in this round?
Yes, I actually have. I've organized a conference called Oikos Future Lab 2015, and it just happened like 3 weeks ago. And one of our goals was to bring students and faculty together. And was such a big challenge to bring faculty to a conference, a student conference. They didn't have time, they are not at interest. I come if you pay for my ticket, or if I'm the speaker, but involve and be engaged is a very hard. How do you bring incentives for the faculty, enable for them to get engaged with the students and start making change together?
Yeah. Well, it's life is ready, fire, aim, not ready, aim, aim, aim. Expect everyone to be involved. So, what I've done in my entire career is you pick. Remember, I was saying at the start, when you're leveraging, you're picking a small number who are prepared to have a go at showing that it might work in this particular context, because no one will engage if they don't have, in a sense, a situated proof of concept. So it's also much less stressful. So in the case of, you know, trying to get a whole lot of staff to come together with a whole lot of students, it'll never work. What will work is a small number of staff and students showing the benefits of coming together to do something together. And, you know, like, for example, the Sustainable University Rolling Fund that I mentioned earlier that we set up, we started that with just a few people. And once a couple of people did it, and we gave awards at the end of the year, right, for the projects, and the Vice-Chancellor pointed out the return on investment, it's sort of like fishing. You've got to have a bait, and the bait is what a small number of people have done that other people think, oh, I might be missing out here. You can't use brute logic to make people come along. You've got to use a bait, you've got to fish, and the only way to do it is to start small, build on your successes, just have a small group, but, you know, the staff and students show that there's actually, we had a great time, and look at this, and look, we got an award, and, you know, and a few others will come along.
Sure.
Thanks a lot, Geoff. And would you also have a question to Adriana, actually?
I mean, my question is how can we link up the various networks? I have the same problem everywhere. There are endless networks all working in parallel. So I don't know whether it's a rhetorical question, Adriana, but it's something that we might want to follow up later. How can we link the various networks that are... See, we have in Australia an Education for Sustainability network, which is an academic network, but they're very interested in co-creation with students, you know what I mean? So they're there, but they wouldn't know about oikos, if you know what I mean. They don't really know about Copernicus either, Clemens, you know what I mean? And we've got all these networks all running around. We've got the RCE network, you know, all these 133. No one knows about them, and each one of those 133 RCEs tends to have a university hosting it that cares about sustainability. I mean, it's you know, there's a whole network of fellow travellers. So my question, my dear, is, and you don't have to answer this because I don't know what we'll do, but, you know, have you got any cunning ideas on how we might network the networks?
That's always an issue, Geoff. It's too many initiatives, too many things happening. It seems that everybody has the need of creating their own things instead of engaging with something that is already there. And I would love to collaborate with you. Like, when I was thinking of you, like, now I'm like, oh, I'm gonna bring Geoff to my next webinar because he has so many knowledge that that he could bring to our students. And I guess we could start from there. If you actually start talking to our students and get to know a little bit of flavor of them, and then we start seeing, okay, now we start talking. And first we listen, right? Talk, and then we see how can we leverage and start leading it.
That's good. I like it. And that's consistent with what we were saying. Start small, build on our successes.
Exactly.
Okay, well, put me down. We can communicate after we've had our webinar and so on, and work out a way. I'm coming over to Switzerland, so it may be that we might be able to meet up when I'm over there too, Clemens. I'm not sure whether that will fit or not, but that's a possibility.
Yes, that's how it starts. Thank you so much. I got very inspired by you.
Wonderful. Good on you.
Thank you very much, both of you. And if that wasn't already a success of this outcome for our webinar, that we bring people together, and we've learned a lot. We have had live listeners here. I don't know where they come from, but they might come from all over the world. And as this session is recorded, actually people can also follow it up later on the internet at our YouTube channel. And maybe that's also an opportunity here to spread the message. So how to link different networks, how to bring people together. It's actually spreading the message around. And I hope we can also support in this a little bit. And that's the point where I also like to mention our partners in this program. And you mentioned it already, Geoff. On the one point, it is Copernicus Alliance. It's a European network on higher education for sustainable development. Here in Switzerland, it is the Sustainable Development at Universities program who is actually funding this whole ELT seminar and program. And then at the global scale, we collaborate with the International Association of Universities that has actually a higher education for sustainable development platform. So that might be also an opportunity here, Geoff, where we could post our message and post our activities online for a global outreach. Then the Global University Partnership for Environment and Sustainability run by UNEP. And there are the RCEs. So also through the RCE network, in collaboration with the United Nations University Institute for Advanced Studies of Sustainability, we can spread this message and reach out and look further for collaborations, maybe for webinars run by oikos. For the next Future Lab probably also, or within other universities that are out there. So thank you very much to both of you, really, for being so inspirational and contributing so actively to our webinar here. I'm very much looking forward to follow up this conversation. And Geoff, you mentioned some links, and maybe also Adriana will post those links and to your organizations and to your studies that you have done, Future Lab, maybe also to our channel, so people can follow up this information as well. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Clemens.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye now.